broke through American lines at that time, and a lot of them got behind the American lines, and we didn't know who was friend and we didn't know who was foe, and it was a very confusing time and a very scary time. So I remember the tension of sometimes not knowing who was coming toward you, whether it was an American or whether it was a German. And we had code words and passwords and so forth. And by the way, if you weren't a baseball fan, you were in trouble because you had to know the Yankee lineup and the Boston Red Sox lineup and things like that. When we were in the Army, these were used as passwords. And I'm sure there was a lot of times when Americans killed Americans because we were just overly nervous and trigger happy to at a time when we didn't know who was behind us and who was in front of us. So it was confusion during the Battle of the Bulge. 20,000 Americans were killed in that battle. It was probably the highest price of American soldiers in a single battle since the Civil War, and at least as many Germans. So it was a very bloody battle, but it was confusion, it was cold, we didn't know what the next day would bring, we didn't know if our supplies would last, and it was this kind of atmosphere. But when we were sent down to keep the Germans penned into the ports of St. Nazaire and Lorient, the nature of the war kind of changed because then it was a matter of just confinement and containment of 50,000 Germans. And Eisenhower and Bradley, I guess, decided that the price would be too high to try to capture those ports. And so our job was just to keep them contained. And it was just one day after another of artillery duels and machine gun battles and patrol battles and things of this sort.
When you first had your gun, were you afraid of shooting the Germans? Or were you afraid of shooting someone, or just...
I was afraid of shooting another American. But no, we had been trained very highly. You know, we had been trained on shooting, and we had been trained on the use of all kinds of guns. And as I said, I was in an anti-tank company, and our major weapon was a 57 millimeter anti-tank gun. It looked like an artillery piece, except it was a very high-powered, almost like a big artillery cannon that shot ammunition very quickly. High-velocity 57 millimeter shells about that much in diameter, and these were aimed primarily at tanks to blow them up. But when the Germans ran out of gas and their tanks were no longer available for them, we used the same anti-tank guns to hit buildings where we thought we were being hit by sniper fire or where there were observers observing us, and we had to get rid of them. And we were also given machine guns at that time and rifles, so the nature of the war changed when the Germans effectively ran out of, let's say, gas and air power.
We're actually at 40 minutes, so...
that is fine.
We don't have any more questions. If there's anything else you'd like to add.
No, well, thank you, and thank you for interviewing me, and I hope that you study more about World War II. And
we will.
It was one of the turning points of history, and there was a time where America came from what was sort of a secondary power to achieve world-class power, and it put the United States at the forefront, and we're still at the forefront, hopefully, in a lot of respects, but it was a very major turning point in world history. And I think that a lot of people say it was a good war, in the sense that we had an enemy that had to be defeated. We had an enemy that was a savage and bestial enemy, and God knows what would have happened if they had won.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.